There is a species of fish so ancient that the sharks alive when it first appeared have themselves been extinct for 65 million years. It does not swim the way modern fish swim. It walks almost using its fleshy, lobed fins like limbs, a memory of the moment, 400 million years ago, when life first considered leaving the sea. Scientists call it Latimeria shalumnae. The fishermen of the Banda Sea have other names for it. Most of those names translate approximately to the same thing, the fish that should not be here. Dr. Yusuf Ambara has spent 6 years studying a creature that most of his colleagues consider, at best, a career detour. He is 36 years old, a marine biologist at the University of Hassanuddin in Makassar, and he has a habit that his department head describes as reckless and his students describe as magnificent. He builds his own equipment, his rebreather, a closed-circuit diving system that recycles exhaled gas, eliminating the bubble trail that disturbs the deep. Is constructed from components sourced across 4 countries, calibrated by hand, and tested to depths that the manufacturers of its individual parts did not intend. He calls it, without apparent irony, tenang, the Malay word for calm. 3 years ago, in November 2021, Yusuf tagged a coelacanth in the waters off Sulawesi, 500 kilometers to the west of where he now sits, on the deck of a chartered dive tender, watching the Banda Sea turn copper in the late afternoon light. The tag was routine. What was not routine was what the acoustic receiver logged in the months that followed. The fish, designated simply C7 in his field notes and her in every conversation, had moved east. Not drifted, moved, purposefully, measurably, against the prevailing thermocline. And then, in November 2022, she had returned to the same coordinates, 4 degrees 31 minutes south, 129 degrees 54 minutes east. In November 2023, again. The receiver log was unambiguous. This was not feeding behavior. This was not mating behavior. No published literature described anything like it. This is the 3rd November. Yusuf has not told his department head he is here. He has filed a standard survey request covering a 40-kilometer zone. The specific coordinates are buried in an appendix that no one has read. He pulls on his fins, checks Tenang's primary oxygen partial pressure display, 1.3 bar, steady, and rolls backward off the tender's gunwale into water the color of deep jade. At 10 meters, the sea is still green, the particular green of old glass, full of suspended particles that Yusuf's primary light cuts through in a narrow, shivering cone. The visibility is perhaps 12 meters in any direction. Beyond that, the water closes like a curtain. He checks his depth gauge. His descent rate is controlled, deliberate. 10 meters per minute, a pace that gives his body time to adjust to the mounting pressure without giving his mind time to dwell on the fact that the seafloor beneath him has never been formally surveyed. At 20 meters, the green darkens to something closer to slate. The light's reach shortens. He can hear, through the water, the low metallic whisper of Tenang's scrubber unit processing his exhalations, a sound like very distant machinery. And beneath it, the absolute silence of open water at depth. No ship noise, no biological chorus. The Banda Sea here is quiet in a way that has weight to it. At 40 meters, color begins to leave the world. His dive flag buoy far above is, by now, a theoretical object. The surface is a rumor. His depth gauge clicks, an actual, faint mechanical sound, as the needle crosses the 40-meter mark. The water temperature has dropped 4 degrees in the last 10 meters. He can feel it through the neoprene at his wrists and throat. At 50 meters, a single lanternfish drifts past his mask. Diaphis effulgens, he notes automatically, a species common to midwater zones throughout the Indo-Pacific. Its photophore is pulsing a cold, pale blue. Once, twice, then gone. At 65 meters, he almost misses it. A faint warmth against the back of his hand. Not the water, something rising through it. A thermal. He pauses his descent, hovering, and sweeps his light in a slow arc toward the seafloor below. The beam catches something at the edge of its range. A shimmer, the way heat moves above asphalt in the dry season. And then, at the boundary of visibility, a shape, slow, deliberate, lobed, crosses from left to right and disappears. C7 is already here. She is already waiting. The seafloor at 89 meters is not what the bathymetric charts predicted. The charts, compiled from 1970s sonar surveys of uneven quality, described a featureless sediment plain. What Yusuf finds instead is a depression. Circular, roughly 40 meters in diameter, its floor sunk perhaps 3 meters below the surrounding seabed. The thermal shimmer is concentrated here. He descends into it slowly, watching the temperature display on Tenang climb by increments. 21 degrees at the rim, 24 at the midpoint, 28 at the center, where the seafloor is rust orange rather than gray, and a cluster of tube worms, Riftia pachyptilla or something closely related, sway in the heated upwelling like an underwater wheat field. Around the vent cluster, life has organized itself with the dense, improbable abundance that always accompanies deep geothermal activity. Yusuf moves his light in slow arcs, cataloging a species of holothurian, pale and translucent, that he does not recognize. A field of bivalves with shells the color of old ivory. 3 separate individuals of a small, heavily armored fish, possibly a new species of snailfish, possibly something else entirely, resting motionless on the sediment, apparently unbothered by his light. At the periphery of the vent field, C7 circles. She does not approach, she does not flee. She simply moves in that ancient contemplative gait, as though she has been performing this circuit since before his species existed. It is when Yusuf turns to photograph the vent cluster's northern edge that his light falls on the column. It rises from the sediment to a height of approximately 1 meter and 40 centimeters. He estimates with the practiced eye of a man who has spent years measuring things in water, and it is broken cleanly at the top, its upper surface flat as though the remainder has been removed rather than eroded. The stone is dark, almost black, and its surface is uniformly covered, from base to crown, in what his first instinct, the instinct of a biologist, not an archaeologist, tells him is an unusually regular biological incrustation. He moves closer. His second instinct, arriving 3 seconds later, stops his hands from touching it. The pattern on the stone is not biological. It has never been biological. It is carved. For a moment, that his dive computer will later record as lasting 47 seconds, Yusuf Ambara does not move. He is a marine biologist. He knows, with the precision of professional training, exactly what coelacanths eat, how they reproduce, and at what depths they prefer to rest. He knows the thermal tolerances of Riftia tube worms and the distribution of snailfish across the Indo-Pacific. He does not know, and has never needed to know, the decorative vocabulary of pre-Hindu Javanese ceremonial stonework. But he spent 3 years of his childhood in Yogyakarta, where his mother taught secondary school history, and he has walked the stone corridors of Prambanan more times than he can count. The pattern etched into the column, interlocking stepped lozenges, bisected by vertical lines at regular intervals, each intersection marked with a small drilled circle, is not similar to what he has seen carved into the volcanic andesite of temple walls above the Java Sea. It is identical. The problem which arrives in Yusuf's mind with the slow, terrible clarity of depth narcosis, that is not narcosis at all, but simply comprehension, is geological. Prambanan was built in the 9th century A.D. The stonework tradition it draws from is older, centuries older, reaching back through the Hindu-Buddhist kingdoms of early Java. But this column is at 89 meters below sea level. For it to bear this pattern and rest at this depth, it would have had to have been carved and placed here at a time when this seafloor was dry land. The last time this section of the Banda Sea basin was above water was during the Pleistocene low stand, when falling sea levels exposed vast tracts of what is now the shallow Sunda and Sahul shelves. The most recent such period ended approximately 12,000 years ago. The stonework tradition that produced this pattern did not, according to any existing historical record, exist 12,000 years ago. It did not exist within 8,000 years of 12,000 years ago. Yusuf's rebreather alarm does not sound. His suit does not fail. The danger that arrives at this moment in the story is not mechanical. It is epistemological. He is a scientist. He is trained to distrust the singular anomaly, to resist the conclusion that screams, and seek instead the patient, boring, alternative explanation. He tries. He tries for the full 90 seconds. He remains hovering before the column, turning the light across its surface, looking for the fracture pattern, the geological process, the coincidence of erosion and incrustation that could produce this. He finds none. There is a decision he must make, and it is this. He has enough oxygen remaining in Tenang's primary cell for 22 minutes. He is alone at 89 meters, and he has just found something that does not fit inside the world as it is currently understood. He reaches for his camera. He photographs the column from every angle his body can achieve in the confined space of the vent depression. He photographs the carved surface in sections, overlapping, so that a photogrammetric reconstruction will be possible later. He photographs the surrounding seafloor for context, the vent cluster, the tube worms, the placement of the column relative to the depression's geometry, and then he does something that is not in any scientific protocol he has ever been trained to follow. He simply looks at it. For 4 minutes, without the camera, without movement, he looks at the thing that 12,000 years of ocean have preserved in total darkness and absolute cold, waiting for precisely nothing, requiring nothing, simply existing with the patient indifference of stone. C7 completes her circuit once more while he watches. She does not appear to notice the column. Yusuf has spent 3 years constructing theories about why she comes here. The thermal upwelling, perhaps, or the unique chemical signature of the vent field, or some navigational instinct tied to the geology of the basin. He does not revise any of these theories now. He adds to them, instead, a possibility he cannot quantify, and will not, he decides, include in any initial report that the coelacanth, unchanged for 400 million years, has been returning to a location that was once a place where human beings stood and worked stone. That she has been, in some sense, that science has no language for keeping a kind of company. His ascent takes 53 minutes, including 2 decompression stops, at 21 meters and at 9 meters, where he hangs in the blue-green middle water and lets the pressure equalize in his tissues. During the second stop, he replays the camera footage on the small review screen mounted to Tenang's primary housing. The images are clear, the pattern is clear. He watches it for the full 9 minutes of the stop,